All right, you want to lose 30 pounds in 90 days? Yeah, I bet. Who doesn't? You want to do it and you want it to be extremely easy, of course. I can do this, I can make this happen, I can even show you, but the reality is, you know you, and I have a feeling I know you too. But anyway, welcome to Walk Talk Vent. Let's do this.
Hi guys, welcome back. Today we have a real treat. We're going to visit with a YouTuber named Crystal Montes, and Crystal Montes is going to share her experience with how her friends treated her differently once she lost weight. This can happen to people. Sometimes people don't like the idea of you doing a dramatic change with your life while maybe they're sitting on the sidelines. So she's going to tell us her little story. I'm looking forward to hearing this live with you. So let's check it out together.
400 subscribers, guys. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Alright, so in today's video, it's a little touchy. I'm going to be talking about jealousy and weight loss. So guys, you remember when I said I know what it feels like to be the biggest wife, the biggest sibling, the biggest cousin, the biggest friend, just the biggest one in the group. So what happens when roles switch or you're no longer the biggest one in the group? What happens to the people around you who were used to you playing that role, that big girl role, that role that some may get comfortable with you playing? And a role that you're playing, just a role that you're being, you're living it. So guys, a very, very close friend of mine, one of my best friends till this day. So we got through what I'm about to tell you. This was about the beginning of the summer, around the time when the wedding situation happened. For those of you who are keeping up, I just hit my wonderland, so I was down 65 pounds. So guys, 65 pounds. So I was talking to someone, and it was brought to my attention, not by that person, but just kind of like a click moment in my head, that time I began my weight loss journey up until the beginning of the summer, down 65 pounds, one of my closest friends that I see a good amount of times had decided to ignore my weight loss. And guys, I had no idea. I had no idea this was happening. I did not pay it any mind. But in that moment, so many things started to come through my head and rush through my head, and all of these, just click, 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 click. And I realized so much. She was with me at the store when I found out that I was then a size 14. And so it was a big moment for me. I was in the next dressing room right next to her, and once I got them up, they zipped and I buttoned them, guys. That was like huge. And I remember telling her, like, oh my goodness, girl, like, oh my gosh, these pants fit. They're a size 14. Like, these pants fit. Now, we've been friends for some time now, and she knows my clothes sizes and all of that stuff. She's bought me clothes for Christmas before. And she knows that throughout the whole time we've known each other, I was not even close to the size 14. So basically, it was no need to express how major this was for me. And I remember it was very, when I told her, it was like, oh, nice.
Poor Crystal. She was hoping for that Lifetime movie moment where she's shopping with her girlfriend. She realizes she's dropped a couple of sizes down to, I guess, a size 14, she said, right? And she's hoping that her friend would grab her by the arms and say, still, yeah, right? And she would have that Lifetime movie moment, or maybe that rom-com movie moment, right? But the reality is, sometimes people don't know how to celebrate things with you. And it can be a two-sided sword, right? Because sometimes if you do treat your friend differently, you can't do right necessarily, right? Because if you treat her differently, she'll be like, "Why are you treating me any differently?" Right? But in this situation, you have to feel for her. She dropped so many sizes. She wanted to have that moment with her best friend, and her best friend just didn't quite rise to the occasion. With that being said, congratulations on your weight loss. That is awesome. Let's hear what else you have to say.
Very mellowed out. I also remember, you know, there would be just comments like, 2 weeks after that. Oh, yeah, because, like, what size are you again? Like, if she just wanted to forget that I was a size 14. Or, she also went to the wedding as a guest, and we were, fun moment, let's look for clothes and stuff. And I remember bringing up that, she was on a website and she seen a dress in the regular size section. But she wanted to assure me that if I wanted to look in that website, that they did have a plus size section for me.
So, how do we handle as people these little jabs? Because that happens sometimes, right? Your friend, instead of being happy for you and excited with your weight loss, right? Now she says comments like, "Hey, if you want to shop where I shop, I just want you to know they have a plus size section," right? Why do people do that to people? Why do people say certain things? Who knows? All I know is that one thing for sure, if those comments are coming your way, it probably means you're doing something right, right? I don't know why people act the way they do. Look at how I paused her face. I don't know why people act the way they do. Sometimes it's just hard for people to feel good about you when they're going through some tough stuff. So whenever somebody doesn't quite cheer as loudly as they should for you, just give them the benefit of the doubt. They might be going through a tough time, or they might just be a jerk, toxic friend that it's time to get rid of. But either way, make sure you don't jump to conclusions. Sometimes people just don't know how to celebrate the right way.
Which was fine because, size 14 is plus size. Size 10 right now in the fashion world is definitely considered plus size. I knew at this point that it was, I had just, again, into Wonderland, and it was to the point where, aren't we both in the plus size? Aren't we both considered plus size at this point? These are things that I'm just thinking about, and I just ignored them all. I did not pay attention to them, but they were just all flashing back. And just little things like that, or just not saying anything. So I was just about to get ready to plan the next steps of my weight loss journey, and I just hit Wonderland, and that's when I was really gonna gun for the 100 down with it by January. And I said, I don't want this to weigh heavy on me. She's a dear friend of mine, and I feel this is important enough to talk about, and I'm going to confront her. So I did.
All right, let's analyze this for fun, guys. She's going to confront her friend. She considers her a good friend, but did you catch something earlier? She was only going to be a guest at the wedding. Sometimes people think I should be, up here in your wedding, and instead I'm down here with everybody else. For all we know, there could be a little rift there because of that, right? Did you even hear that when she said it earlier? Let's see if that comes up more again in the story, or if it was just a detail that doesn't really matter much. Let's check out what goes on from here on out.
I did. And I told her everything. Hey girl, I just wanted to bring this up to you. I didn't notice before. I just recently noticed. But I realized that you practically ignored my weight loss. Like, I totally understand if I was down 20 pounds, 5, 10, 20 pounds. Maybe only my husband would notice, but 65 pounds down and, about 2 pant sizes, and I basically just told her everything, that everything just came to me, and it was like a flashback, and I started picking up on all these moments in the dressing room and stuff. And then, I said, what's going on? Is there something I need to know? Do we need to talk about something? Is something wrong with you? What's up? So having this conversation with her, and I'm so glad I came to her about it, because you can tell sincerely she was shocked that she had not mentioned my weight loss to me. She apologized, and it was very emotional, and what a great friend would do, if I hurt you in any way, that was never my intention. This was.
Guys, I got to be honest, I wasn't expecting a happy ending like that, and it might still twist here. We got another couple minutes left on this video, right? But that is really something that you should really take into account. Sometimes when you have that courageous talk and you say, "What's going on? Are we no longer friends?" Right? Sometimes you'll find out that the person just had a lot on their mind and 2 plus 2 wasn't 4 for them during this process, right? So anyway, let's see how the rest of this finishes. But I think that's a great little story, even if it stopped right there, that not everyone is necessarily looking into your world as deeply as you would like. And then if they did, you'd be like, "Get out of my business, girl."
Silly of me, and I did not notice, but everyone around me knows about you and how much weight you've lost. And, doing it with being a new mom, and just, she just wanted to just kind of, I told this person this and that person that. And, it was genuine, and I got it. And then she kind of went in, she told me, that she's struggling to lose the weight, and she's doing what she can, and she's trying, and it got her a little down, but she's trying to get it together.
So again, I think we all jump to conclusions there, right? Sometimes people really don't care about your successes. But sometimes people have so many problems that they just don't have time to take into account your problems. And I've said this a couple of different times that 94% of people don't care, but it's not necessarily because they're a jerk. It's because 100% of us have overwhelming problems. At least that's how they come across to us, right? So if I'm dealing with a weight issue and all of a sudden you've lost 50 or 60 pounds, that might actually get me down a little bit. You know what I mean? But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm a horrible person. I think it just means people are human. Speaking of humans, human, why don't you go grab your shoes? Let's go for a walk. Good morning, Venters. I hope you guys are having an excellent start to your day. I heard a story today of a Lifetime Achievement Award that I thought you guys would find extremely nice to hear. So check this out. There's an 80-year-old couple that recently adopted an 8-month-old baby. They didn't adopt, they're part of the foster care system, so they took in an 8-month-old baby. And some of you might be thinking, my goodness, 80 years old, taking care of an 8-month-old, that might be a little too much to handle, but you might not feel that way here in a second. So the Lincolnshire Foster Services have issued a Lifetime Achievement Award to a couple named Robert and Margaret Isdale in Lincolnshire, England. And apparently in 1978, they took in, as a foster care couple, they took in a teenage girl. So that was back in 1978, right? Well, check this out. Over the last 40 some odd years, this couple has adopted over 150 kids of all ages, right? From little babies to full-blown teenagers and have helped them get along in a world where they otherwise would have felt totally alone. Sometimes those kids grew up and returned to their family members that had to give them up for a time being. And sometimes they grew up underneath the Isdale house and ended up becoming parents and having their own families and stuff. But it's really special when you can take care of children that aren't necessarily born to you and your spouse. And I just find that really, really awesome that the Isdales over the last 40 years have taken care of over 150 kids. Every single one of them needed somebody like the Isdales to come along. They needed their little guardian angels, so to speak. And Robert and Margaret Isdale were always there for them. So let's go back to that original thought. An 8-month-old baby being taken care of by an 80-year-old couple. I think we can all agree if there is an 80-year-old couple that can handle it, it's Robert and Margaret Isdale. So Robert and Margaret, yay for you. Good job. So many times in this world we kind of are blind to the problems of it. Sometimes we see people in the very grocery store that we're shopping at and maybe their mom's credit card or something didn't go through. It takes a special person to say, you know what, I want to help those people. And the reason it takes a special person is why it's so unique when people do good things. Oh, almost had a car accident up here because somebody just crossed the road with cars coming. How weird is that? Yeah, take your trailer elsewhere, sir. So anyway, I found that story fascinating. Some of the people listening here might have their own situation of growing up in the foster care system. Good morning. And if you did have an experience in the foster care system, was it a good experience for you? I know some people don't necessarily have the best foster care experience. I can tell you one thing. If you're contemplating fostering kids, I think that that's a beautiful thing to contemplate. If you decide that it's not for you, I completely understand that's a giant decision to take in kids into your home. But it's a blessed decision because, let's be honest, kids are very impressionable, and you want them to know from an early age that, believe it or not, kids, there are people out there that care. There are people out there that believe in something bigger than just themselves, and they will, go to the ends of the earth for other people. And that's a beautiful thing that I think can give us all hope. One of the things that really sucks when you're going through trials and tribulations, maybe it's a situation where you're battling cancer, or maybe it's a situation where your weight is getting to the point where it's really affecting your health. We all have these tough situations in life that can really make us feel like we're on an island all by ourselves, a Robinson Crusoe type situation, right? But luckily, there are people out there that they're wonderful human beings. And if we didn't have anybody to ever step up and do these wonderful things, the world would not be that great of a place. And a lot of times I complain because it doesn't really come across as that great of a place anymore. But the reality is, people like the Isdales prove me wrong, and I'm glad and more than happy to be proven wrong, Every day and every year around this country, you have the ability to make a change, a positive change in someone's life. It might be as simple as just saying hello to them when you walk by them on the street. It might be as simple as just smiling. It might be as simple as helping somebody out if they ask you for a couple dollars. There's a million ways where we have the ability to help people, or we have the ability to shut those people down. And there's a fine line and there's a balance that has to be done because, sometimes when you help people in this world, you've heard that expression, give an inch, take a mile. there's a lot of people out there that I found in life that when you do help them, when you do give them an inch, they don't take anything less than a mile, you know? So there are some situations where you feel like, hey, no good deed goes unpunished. But you know what? If you're one of those people, and sometimes that's me, that falls in that category of no good deed goes unpunished, it doesn't really give you permission to stop doing good. You know, that's why I always tell people, when you do good, you know, if you're the type that needs a pat on the back and a attaboy, you know, then you're probably doing good stuff for the wrong reason. Is it great when we get acknowledged for the good stuff that we do? Just like when the Lincolnshire foster care system gave this Lifetime Achievement Award to the Isdales? Of course it is. You know, it's wonderful when we hear praise for doing good stuff, but you have to be the type of person, if you're a legitimate good person, you have to be the type of person that's sometimes okay with not hearing a thank you. And you got to move on and keep doing good stuff, you know? And that's where it's challenging in the world. We don't really want to live in a world where people never notice our good qualities or our good things. But, you know, unfortunately, that's the way it is. So whenever I find out that people are doing good things, good morning. Whenever I find out that people are doing good things, it makes me feel happy. It gives me that hope because, man, sometimes it feels like all you do when you turn on the news is hear bad stuff. And there's plenty of bad stories and stuff to go around, right? But the reality is every now and then you hear about a couple like the Isdales, and it makes people like me think, you know, is there something more that I could do in this world? Good morning. And if there is something more, you know, do I want to go down that route and actually do it, you know? One of the things that I like doing whenever I find that a close personal friend is struggling, I like to kind of be that light in the darkness for them, you know? So it's not uncommon for me to help out a buddy when he or she is struggling, you know? But at the same time, I've never gone to the level of, you know, fostering kids or anything like that. And I don't think that would be my strong suit, right? It probably wouldn't be a strong suit for a lot of us, but, you know, I challenge you. If there is a situation that you've been thinking about helping, but you haven't, for example, sometimes people have volunteer work on the horizon that they'd like to do. You know, if you've been thinking about doing one of these 5K races to raise money for charity, you know, maybe this will be the year that you actually go out and do it. You know, if your church or organizations that you're a part of, if they want to do charitable events, you know, maybe this is the year that you decide to do some volunteer work, right? If you have a situation where maybe you're retired and you want to do a part-time job, you know, there's a lot of people out there that shouldn't be around kids. And there's a lot of people like yourself that might be perfect around kids, and maybe in your retirement, maybe you could get a part-time job at a daycare center where you can actually make a difference in kids' lives, you know? There's some people out there that legitimately know that they've got a good heart and a good soul, and it's those people that we need to have do things like volunteer work, you know? If you've ever done volunteer work in your life, let me know in the comments. If you've been contemplating doing volunteer work but have never actually pulled the trigger and done it before, let us know in the comments. Maybe hearing my voice talking about this story is the catalyst that you need to actually do something positive in the world. Could you imagine if every single person in the world just naturally did a couple 100 hours worth of community service every year? You know, could you imagine if every time somebody needed somebody to step up to bat for them, there was somebody there ready to go, you know? I think it's one thing when you take care of your own family, you know, maybe you have a child who has a child and they need help, right? So you decide that, hey, I'm going to help raise my grandchild so that my son or daughter can, you know, get a job and survive, you know, because sometimes it's tough to survive as a young couple with a young child. And you want to know something? Sometimes grandma or grandpa babysitting our grandchildren, that might be that little extra something that, our kids need so that they don't end up going through divorce and stuff. I noticed that what couples tend to do, and I'm no different when I was in a couple, is when things start to get tough, a lot of times young couples will break up. What they don't realize is that when things get tough, that's why you should stay together, It's so much easier going through this life with a teammate. The reason so many of us in middle age are single is because we just simply found out in life that we picked the wrong teammate, But some of us might think that we picked the wrong teammate and we just got kind of tired of being part of a couple and decided to be single, So I think we all know that there's probably relationships in the past that maybe we gave up on a little too quickly. Conversely, there's probably some relationships in the past that we stuck around a little too long, right? But I think that we can all agree that whenever you are with a couple, if you can somehow find a way to get along together, there's a lot of success in your future. My daughter and her husband have literally known each other since grade school. Is that a beautiful thing? They became high school sweethearts, and now they've been married, I believe, since 2017. So we're talking, they've been married for a good 7 or 8 years. When I went to their wedding, which once again seems like yesterday, it just kind of blows me away at how fast, 5 and 10 year periods of time can just melt away, And for those of us that are in our middle ages, sometimes the idea of even dating and stuff can scare the bejesus out of us, the bejeebas. And, so a lot of times when men and women get into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they might find themselves alone for the first time in a long time. And just reaching out and trying to date and stuff can become very challenging, You want to make sure that you allow somebody into your life, but at the same time, because you're single, you don't want to allow the wrong person in your life, So if you're one of those folks that's single and you don't want to be single forever, you want to meet the right person, You want to ultimately become equally yoked with a person, It would be cool if you could marry somebody or get together with somebody that had your same ideals in life, that felt the same way that you do about things. But you got to remember, if you have a million different opinions on a million different subjects, then even people that you think believe the same things you do, they're probably going to have little differences along the way. Part of life is compromise, So don't shut out everybody. If you're a conservative person and you don't really want to marry somebody that's super liberal, I can understand that. And vice versa. If you're a liberal, progressive type individual, maybe you don't want to marry somebody that's, extremely conservative like your parents were, So I agree that, you want to try to find somebody that aligns with you. But at the same time, it's kind of like eating food when we're little kids. You don't want to be super picky. You want to give people chances, Now, if you're a person that believes in the Lord and you like going to the church every, weekend, right, and being around other believers, then it might not be easy to marry a non-believer. But at the same time, it happens. And sometimes people that are conservative do marry, Democrats and vice versa. And sometimes those relationships last forever and are wonderful. You don't necessarily have to agree with your spouse about everything. But at the same time, some of us want to be single and are very happy being single. I'm one of these guys, I kind of fall into the hopeless romantic category, that even though I might say till I'm blue in the face, I love being single, I like being single, right? But at the same time, I've told you guys this before, I would love to be in a bookstore one day and just flat out find out that you know, the girl of my dreams is in that bookstore with me. You look over your book, you see her there, she looks over her book, she sees you there, and, you know, a conversation gets started and the rest is history. I think that would be a neat scenario. It always amazes me that I can go to bed, literally drink a glass of water before I go to bed so my mouth is completely lubricated. And then you wake up in Arizona and all of a sudden you feel like you haven't had liquid in your mouth for 18 years. So I wake up sometimes and I get out the door and then I realize, oh my God, my throat is super dry. So a lot of times you guys might hear me stop to get ready to spit. So let's talk about the days flying by super quickly. If you guys are watching this video, you're watching it more than likely Wednesday. Just kind of blows me away that we were just celebrating the weekend, right? We were just there at the weekend and now it's already over and we're halfway through the week again. I can't believe that we're already 5 months from the start of the new year. Does that ever blow you guys away? Doesn't it seem like it just turned 2020 and we were just dealing with the pandemic? Well, golly, that was close to 4.5 years ago already. Those things scare me. I don't know if it's a midlife crisis or not. I always hear during a midlife crisis that a lot of guys want to buy a sports car. And it's funny because I've been talking to some friends of the family about maybe buying a vehicle. There's an SUV I kind of have my eye on. And if I buy a car, I don't really want to finance anything. I just want to pay for it in cash. So right now I've got a particular a particular car that I'm kind of pondering. When was the last time you guys bought a car? And if you bought a car recently, was there any sticker shock for you? Because from what I understand, getting a new car nowadays averages about $45,000, which just seems ungodly when you factor in gas and insurance, because from what I understand, insurance has really jumped up the past couple of years. Everything is just so expensive. That's the one thing I can tell you guys about our plan here. You know, in a world where everything's expensive, it's probably not a bad idea if you're taking a walk for an entertainment value. You know, what better way to kill an hour, you know, in which you're not eating and getting fat, in which you're not spending money and going broke, right? And, you know, some of us, I hear stories all the time that some of you guys are walking for 2 or 3 hours a pop. That is a great way to just have time fly by. So there's a piece of me that's like, yay, time's flying by, we're having fun. But then there's another piece of me that's like, oh my God, the days keep clicking away and none of us are getting any younger. Maybe that's why I think subconsciously that the walk is so important. There's very few things in this world that can fight aging, but I think we can all agree that walking is definitely one of those things that fights aging. And, you know, I don't necessarily want to live to be 100 anymore like I used to. But at the same time, if I am going to live to be 100, I definitely want to be able to walk the whole time. That always amazes me whenever you see people that are extremely elderly. And what I mean by extremely elderly is, let's say, from age 80 on. Some of the 80-year-olds have just aged so gracefully. And they have the ability to walk and communicate, and other than their age, they seem relatively youthful and young and normal, right? And then on the flip side, sometimes we have elderly folks that, you know, they're wheelchair bound, or the last 20 or 30 years of their life, maybe they're completely blind or completely in need of assistance, right? God, I wonder what that feels like, and I hope I never experience that. Could you imagine if your kids put you in a home let's say from the age of 60 some mid 60s on, and you end up living 20 or 30 years in some sort of nursing facility. Gosh, that must be really, really a lonely situation. I know that ideally that you're in there with other senior citizens and stuff, but if you're in there with other senior citizens that are just in a miserable lot themselves, then it's probably not the most enjoyable. Every now and then you'll see a senior living facility where they show a bunch of seniors and they're playing games and they're having fun. I love those things, don't you? That's always fun when you see that, because then you think to yourself, hey, they found a good facility. And then every now and then you find out that a facility made the news because maybe the nurses on call were very cruel and mean to the seniors that live there. Those stories hurt my heart so bad, because you would like to think that grandma and grandpa can always be treated kindly and with decency, right? And let's be honest, those nursing homes that we put our parents and grandparents in, they're very expensive. So no matter where you go, whether it's a little bit cheaper or a little bit, more costly, there's a piece of you that's always thinking, God, I hope they treat my grandma and grandpa correctly and nicely, My grandma was really lucky. She had me to help take care of her the last 10 years of her life, and she had my uncles before they died, and she also had my mom there to help. And it wasn't easy. I mean, the last year or so we had to have nurses come in constantly, but I'm really glad that when push came to shove, we were able to find a way where she didn't have to go into hospice, or she didn't have to go, into long-term care. So she was able to kind of, enjoy her last couple of years in her own home. And my grandma actually passed away in my dining room. And, that was, God, that was really crazy. That was a little bit over a year ago. She died on March 26th of last year. So I was actually filming a video here on the 1 year anniversary of her passing. And I remember that day I just did a video and I didn't even mention her because I didn't want to start tearing up or, getting sad. I think I told you guys that when I was on my recovery from my surgery, I reached out to my dad. My dad's name was Jimmy. I reached out to my dad, Jimmy, and I found his sisters, my aunts, all on Facebook, and some cousins too. And I reached out to them, and at first they didn't respond. And I was like, oh my goodness, these are family members that just for whatever reason, they don't really want to be in my life. But the reality was they were just these people that didn't necessarily get on Facebook every single day. So a couple weeks later, when they saw my friend request, my cousin Jackie reached out to me and he goes, cousin, I hate to tell you this, but you're about 5 years too late. Your dad passed away. He had, I believe he had liver cancer. I guess my dad had a real bad problem with alcohol and drugs in his early adult life. And throughout his whole life, I guess he never quite got off the alcohol. So through his whole life, I guess one of the things he loved doing, and he lived in Oklahoma, one of the things he really enjoyed doing was going to his local little bar or pub and just drinking with, his local friends there. And apparently he was extremely popular. He always had a fun joke or fun story to share. But I really wish, especially now that I'm 47, I really wish that at some point in my adult life, I would have thought to get on Facebook a little bit sooner and reach out to my family members. And I've had people say, Jesse, your dad was never in your life, but that's kind of on your dad, which is true. If you're an 8-year-old kid and your dad's not in your life, it's totally on your dad to get into your life, right? But when you find out as an adult that not only did your dad never reach out to you, but you never reached out to him, and oh, by the way, your whole life growing up, he only lived about 15 minutes down the street that can be very, very disheartening. So that's why I'm pleading to you today. You might not have kids that need fostering in your life. You might not be a foster child. But because there's always somebody out there that is doing good, one of the best things that you can do is try to forgive your friends and family that, maybe haven't been a part of your life. Don't wait for them to pick up the phone and call you and give you some lifelong apology. Sometimes life is too short for that. Sometimes we need to be the one that picks up the phone, or we need to be the one that goes onto Facebook and extends a friendship request, You don't want a story like mine where when you are finally ready to be a part of your dad's life, I literally sat there on my bed, recovering from my surgery, guys, and I literally told myself, I'm ready to be in my dad's life. And I started smiling from ear to ear as I reached for my phone to try to make these connections happen. And for at least a moment, I was back in my dad's life. And even though my dad's been dead now for 5 years and I didn't find out about it till a couple months ago, I feel like he's back in my life now. Because now there are times when I'm on a walk or I'm just alone with my thoughts, and I do have that conversation with my dad. Let him know that, hey, old guy, I forgive you for whatever reason you never wanted to be in my life, and maybe it was a valid reason. Apparently when I was a young baby, he was so into drugs and hardcore drugs and alcohol that my mom just kind of told him, don't come around our kid. We don't want you in our life like that. Which is very true. If you're doing hardcore drugs like meth or crack cocaine or fentanyl or whatever the hardcore drug might be, sometimes the kindest thing that you can do for your loved ones is stay away from them, But it's just kind of sad because it's one thing to stay away from an 8 or a 10-year-old boy, but it's another thing to stay away from your son for the whole of his life. So I like to think that I forgive my dad for not ever picking up the phone and calling me, but I also want to forgive myself because I had 42 years of my life where I could and should have picked up the phone to call him. The other day, just the last couple of days, I tried reaching out to my ex-wife because we've been divorced since '07, but it was one of those divorces where she didn't really realize how special I was in her life until I was gone. And so for the first couple years of our breakup, she really went through hell to try to get me back. But, I was kind of finished with the relationship. And anyway, the last couple of days I've tried reaching out to her, but I think she's finally gotten to the point where she said Jesse is out of sight, out of mind. And so for whatever reason, she doesn't really want to answer my call. Why are you trying to reach her, Jesse? Well, number one, I'd like to kind of say that because we've been divorced for so long, I would like to think that she's happy. I don't think she is, but I'd like to think and wish her happiness. I'd also like to get in a better standing with my son, and considering it is his mom, I'd like to be able to strategize with her. We're still my son's parents, because my son's in one of these weird situations where, after he got out of college, he and his buddies and friends, they've just kind of been doing the reckless and free, I'm in my 20s, I'm going to do my own thing type lifestyle. And because they're in their 20s and doing their own thing, he doesn't really care necessarily about being in contact with me or his mom, or at least I think. The reality is he could be talking to his mom all the time, and maybe they've just both resolved to have me out of their life. I don't know. But I do know one thing. If you guys could keep me in your prayers and thoughts, I would definitely like to have a good relationship with my son. And not just because of my dad's passing, I don't necessarily need to have a loss in life to realize that, I want to be in my son's life, But it's something that's super important to me because, life is short. Something, if I got in a car accident or something and I was on my deathbed, as sad as it sounds, I don't think my son or my ex-wife or a lot of people that were in my life, I don't think they would answer the call, So again, that's where I come back to you guys. When somebody makes your phone ring, you don't have to always answer it if you're in an argument with them, right? But they might be calling to apologize. They might be calling because they might be sick and ill and, be on limited time. And that's where you got to try to be forgiving to people, Even those friends of mine that ditched me on my wedding day and stuff, maybe they knew I was going to ultimately get divorced, and maybe they didn't want to sign off on it. Maybe I've read that whole situation wrong. Maybe they knew something that I didn't, and maybe they were trying to be that red flag that made me think about not getting married. I don't know. But I do know one thing, that if they ever reach out to me and say, hey, I just want to let you know I might have let you down once upon a time and I hope you can forgive me, I will forgive them completely. And I mean majorly forgive, like, hey, you want to go out and get a beer? You want to go out and have dinner? Let's do it. And so what I urge you guys to do is, we all have lifelong frenemies and we all have people that are no longer in our life. Give them a call. Forgive them. Let's move forward together. Let's get our friends back. Anyway, you have a wonderful day and thank you for being my friend. Bye.